Well, welcome everyone, wherever you are joining us. Perhaps you are joining us live on Zoom or on Facebook, or you are in the future, our future, watching this in the pre-recorded version, perhaps on YouTube. So glad you are here. We are so excited to have you join us as we delve into topics about AI in education. So today, we're going to be talking about boosting creativity and media literacy and what that means and what that looks like in the context of a world in which AI is all over the place. It is prevalent in our personal and professional lives. So what I'd love to do is find out who is here. So if you want to introduce yourself in the chat, if you're on Zoom or comments on Facebook Live, or even in the comments on YouTube, feel free to introduce yourself and let us know, how does AI support your creativity or your thought process? And I'm going to log on here so I can see what's happening with Facebook as well. All right, welcome everyone. Glad you're all here. Heidi, what do you do for creativity with AI?
Oh, that's a good question. It's
I
really
know.
coming along. Yeah, it comes alongside me with most of what I'm doing, especially as a thought partner to generate some initial ideas or to expand on something that maybe I can't quite conceptualize, but kind of feed it some of what I'm thinking, and it kind of helps me maybe get to the next place where I was struggling coming up with the next idea or the next iteration.
Excellent, excellent. And Martine, I see you showed how to connect with you in the chat. Thank you for that. How does AI help either your creativity or your thinking?
Oh my gosh, it is now my new brother from another dimension that I never thought I would have. So not only is it my partner, it's my therapist, it's my travel agent. It has now become my financial advisor, my second parent. It's everything. I use it every day because I believe that, like everything else, right? It's the more you use it, the more you understand it, the more we can incorporate in everything that we do. But I love it because it's once again, I love what Rachel's saying. It's my meal prep partner. I am with you, Rachel. I am at that age, ladies and gentlemen, where everything should be reversing. But I can tell you right now, AI says, Martin, you are taking if you want to level up, if you want to get that extra, 3 miles in on your hike on the daily, here's what you need to do in order to step it up a bit. So I love it. So it's pretty much every day, but I also make sure to create something that is fun. I go back to, if I'm not learning and having fun at some point of the day, it's not a day.
That's great. I love it. We need more fun and play in our lives. There's research behind that as well. So absolutely. Well, just a reminder to everyone, or those that are here for the first time, still have some people saying they're newbies, and you are in the right place wherever you are at in your AI journey. This webinar series is based off of our AI guidance at the Department of Ed, which is called Learning with AI, Learning About AI. There's a bit.ly here. If you are watching on your phone, I see some people on Facebook Live, or if you are in a place where you can't quite get that or take a picture of it, don't worry, because all registrants are going to get a link to the slides and all of the resources as well. So you will get that link. There's also a resource kit that's downloadable on our AI webpage as well. So definitely encourage you to check that out. And I wanted to let you know that this is something that is brought to you from our information technology branch at CDE by myself. My name is Catherine Goyetz. You can call me Kat. I'm the computer science coordinator at CDE. And I organize these with my great friend and colleague, Dr. Christina Mattis, who is our EdTech and broadband coordinator. And we always think of an essential question that we have some speakers delve into with us, always incredible, amazing voices. And so today we're considering how can we use AI to boost creativity and promote media literacy. So we're going to learn a little bit about that. Speaking of literacy, just wanted to let everyone know, if you weren't aware, that there was a law that passed in the winter, AB 2876, calling for the Instructional Quality Commission to consider integrating AI literacy into future curriculum frameworks. And so what that's saying is AI literacy, similar to media literacy, is something that can be integrated into other content areas and into what we do. It's a part of our lives now. We have some core skills that we believe are important that make up media literacy and, excuse me, that make up AI literacy. And I was speaking with our first presenter that you'll hear from in a moment about what does media literacy look like in the age of AI. So I thought I would just pull the definitions of AI literacy and media literacy from that legislation for us to consider before we introduce our first speaker. So AI literacy means, and I know that you all can read, but some of you might not be able to see that tiny text if you are listening or watching on your phone. AI literacy means knowledge, skills, and attitudes associated with how AI works, including principles, concepts, and applications, as well as how to use AI, including limitations, implications, and ethical considerations. And media literacy, we've talked about this for quite a few years. Media literacy means the ability to access, evaluate, analyze, and use media and information, and encompasses the foundational skills that lead to digital citizenship. So considering that and seeing how this topic fits into the educational system in California, I am honored to introduce my friend and colleague Heidi Baines, who is at Riverside County Office of Education. And Heidi, do you want to introduce yourself and talk to us a little bit about what you've been thinking?
Sure. Hi, everyone. Thanks for being here. Thanks, Kat, for having me. My name is Heidi Baines. I'm a coordinator for educational technology at the Riverside County Office of Ed. And part of my work does involve AI now, as does everyone's, right? But helping schools and districts kind of figure out what AI looks like in our schools, in our classrooms, how we might be using it for our own educator workflow, and what it looks like to teach students about AI and how to use it ethically and responsibly and the role it plays in their world. And to Kat's point, media literacy, which we've been talking about for a few years, I think there's a whole new layer to being literate and media literate now with the availability and wide availability of generative AI and other forms of AI that we're going to talk about here in a little bit. I mean, when we talk about evaluating sources or evaluating what is true and accurate on the internet and in our digital resources, AI has the potential to create some things that aren't real, that can mislead us, that can mislead students. And when we're asking students to critically analyze sources and media and those things that they use for learning in the classroom, there's a new level of skill that they need to develop, right? Is this even real? Is this resource, did this even happen? Is this completely fabricated? And so those things were always there on the internet. It's just become way easier to produce, and students need a much more critical eye to be media literate and to function in the world in a way that is ethical and responsible, and where they're not being taken advantage of by media as well. So Kat and I were talking earlier about, well, what does it mean with all these AI tools? Now, what does it mean to be media literate as we add on another layer of things that we all need to know and we all need to help our students learn?
Absolutely. Thanks, Heidi. I'm going to stop sharing and share again because I want to make sure that we have sound, because Heidi has a video that she wants to share with us to spark some conversation.
Yes.
So let me go ahead and make sure that I share with optimizing sound here for video sharing. And let's see what we've got here. All right, here we go.
Tell me your name and what do you do at OpenAI?
Yes, my name is Hyunwoo No, and I'm a research lead of Operator in OpenAI.
And what is Operator?
Operator is a research preview of an agent that uses browsers to help users to do things. So I have a 3-year-old kid who likes pasta, so I make a linguine with clam, so I ask it to buy the groceries for it. So I will use Instacart tab. And operator can actually basically use any websites and it is not particularly optimized for Instacart. But the reason why I'm using this app is that it provides a detailed instruction of how this website can be best utilized, just like the tutorial that human can benefit from. So I'll use Instacart tab and ask it to solve task. Could you find a recipe of linguine with clams from our recipes website and add all ingredients to the grocery cart of Instacart? I think I already have some ingredients like butter, vegetable oil, and waters, and black pepper. So you don't need to add them to the cart. So it says that I'll find a recipe and then add everything in the ingredients to the cart. And okay, it says that it'll confirm the ingredients and store with me before adding them to the cart. So let's start by finding the recipe. I'm not doing anything from now on. The operator is just doing, and I'm just watching what it's doing. What is interesting with the operator is that it is using browsers that are built for the human, and it is seeing the exactly same screen that I'm seeing right now, and using the keyboard typing and mouse clicking to control the browser, just like human would do. This is different from other agents that uses API or programming-based interface, which programmers might understand, but non-programmer users cannot understand really well. So operator, because it is using this natural human interface, it's very easy to follow by just looking at what it's doing in the screen.
Can you follow its progress?
Yes. So one way to following its progress is I can zoom in to see the screen better. And Operator is powered by the text-based chain of thought reasoning. So whenever it is doing things, it says, it makes plans of how things can be done. And this can be followed through this list of the dots. And it says I found a recipe and which store would you prefer to use? So I'll ask, use Gus's. So often it asks clarifying question whenever it is needed in the process of solving the task. There are cases that operator have to make sensitive actions like things like logging in or buying things. In this case, we built operator to be safe in this situation. So operator is designed to ask us to take control to log in by ourselves, or whenever it needed checking it, it gives us the control so that I can double check whether the list is correct and then checking it by myself.
Amazing. Thank you so much. I appreciate you showing it to us.
Thank you so much.
All right, Heidi, are you there?
I'm here. All right. So
Wow. So tell us what just happened.
So I'm fascinated by this. This is technology that's available, but not widely available to the masses yet, right? And it's incredible. And I wanted to show it because I don't know that I have an answer to the questions that come up when you watch this video, but I find it fascinating when I think about where this technology is going, because we've heard a lot over the last couple of years about these generative AI systems where we can type something in and it gives us an output, and then we take the output and do something with it. But this idea where we have agents working for us, right? This one's operator, but where we can now just put in a short description of what we need, and then it's completing those tasks for us. It makes me think about okay, we really need a human in the loop for some oversight, right? And he mentioned there at the end how it will ask questions before it just purchases and sends you these ingredients. But it makes me think about, well, what will this look like in the classroom in the future? If we have agents that do the searching for us and that do a lot of this work that right now is, of course it's human driven, how does that change instruction? How does that change what we're asking students to do? How does it change what how they show mastery? I just think there's a lot of questions that come up as this technology advances, despite it being amazing. Like, I literally did this weekend, right? Searched out a recipe, had to go through and figure out what I needed, what I didn't, scroll through Instacart, trying to put my list together, and inevitably I forget something. But like, we've probably done this process or a similar process where we're putting information into multiple systems in a computer. And the idea that it could do that for me while I start heating up the water is amazing, right? And so I spoke with Kat earlier today, and I'm like, I just want to have a conversation about this technology and these capabilities. And on one hand, how exciting it is, but then what does that translate to in what we're asking students to learn, how we're teaching it, and then, how they're showing mastery? How does this play into their lives moving forward?
Yeah, thanks, Heidi. And this is something where Heidi said, she said to me, I don't have all the answers, but I want us to really consider this and think about it. And so in the chat, feel free to let us know your thoughts based on this technology that essentially will not merely generate something, but complete actions for us. What does that mean for the classroom? How might that impact what students need to know, what they need to do now, right? I was asking Heidi, what does media literacy look like if in the future AI fact checks itself?
Right.
Right?
That
Because
like right. So if it's responsible for checking itself, it's a whole nother level of how do we keep human oversight in a world where maybe it's capable of checking itself. I think Kat and I had a conversation about, we don't ever fact check a calculator. And will we get there where it is arguably so trustworthy that we're just taking what it outputs and we're using it? I don't know. We're not there yet. Clearly, we're not there yet, but it's interesting. We have some comments coming in.
yeah, absolutely. So Ashley is saying, I'm currently doing AI research for my dissertation. I'm researching culturally responsive AI in the class, as this new technology is a new form of educational culture. Yeah, it changes a lot of things, right? Absolutely, it has a potential to, certainly. The question about culture makes me wonder, does this mean that we need to focus more on the human elements, on the human creativity? Martine's going to talk about some research about creativity, about Jamie's saying this still requires human critical thinking. So even though the calculator gives me an answer, if I didn't put in the correct equation, it won't matter, right? So those foundational skills are still important. Absolutely. Here in the chat also, I'm concerned about bias.
Mhm.
Depending on how the questions are framed will depend on the answers you receive.
Really good point, right? And if the machine is doing so much of that, how do we, you know, how do we keep bias in check? How do we maintain systems that are unbiased? And so many things to consider. Every time I see a new advancement or a new tool come out, or these tools with more capabilities, it leaves me with more and more and more questions. Yeah. Students still need exposure, right? Specifically in AI, to solve real world problems, creatively. Yes. AI is growing in skills faster than we can keep up with AI literacy. But I think that's why these discussions are important, is looking at something that, and thinking about, all right, how will this change things? Will it change things at all? Or will we find that this is not technology that is super impactful on our day-to-day instruction? Something to consider as well. Do we, maintain status quo, or does this force some kind of change that maybe we haven't experienced before?
Absolutely. And, what does this mean for, I mean, is what we are actually learning going to change as well,
Mm,
right? And what is the job market going to look like? Because that may impact the way we teach and what we teach as well. Certainly. If anyone is interested in predictions on what
mhm.
skills are needed in the future, the World Economic Forum comes up with a future of jobs report every year, and this one that just came out I thought was fascinating because it said that reading, writing, and mathematics is less essential now and expected to decrease in importance according to employers, which may sound a bit scary to educators. What do you think about that, Heidi? Why do you think that might have been there? Yeah, I see someone's gave the
Yeah.
emoji like mind blown right now.
Well, you know what's interesting about that report too? I was going to try to find the link and put it in the chat, is that the projections in that report are for 2030. They're for
Mhm.
5 years from now. And when you look at it, you might think they're 20-year projections, but they're 5-year projections. And when you think about, someone mentioned how fast AI is moving, I mean, yeah, like I don't even know if we can project 20 years, right? So these projections they're happening now. We're not really preparing students for a future. We're literally preparing them for the present. And we have a whole bunch of students, especially our little ones, that won't remember a time where these technologies weren't available, right? They're going to grow up where this was always there, like our students in cell phones or smartphones. I have a son that was born in 2007. That's the year the iPhone came out. He doesn't know a world without a smartphone. And so imagine these students won't really know a world without this technology. And what does that mean to them? And how do we make sure they're prepared to go into a world where this is the norm, where they're, expected to be able to interface with these tools and use them ethically and responsibly and effectively? There's just a lot of question marks, and I find it really exciting, but it also gives me a ton to think about, like Jane's emoji there. I think I spent a lot of time like mind blown with the amazingness of the technology, and then a step back thinking, okay, now what does this mean for society, and what does this mean specifically in education? A lot of time thinking about these things.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm so glad you're encouraging us to really think critically about all of these issues. I will say about that jobs report that shows, reading, math, and writing is not less essential now and expected to decrease in importance. I would still argue that, when the calculator's here and yet we still teach kids mathematics, right? Like we still want them to have number sense. We want them to understand how computation works. So I would argue that perhaps maybe it's less essential because, I can have something read to me, but I still need to understand language. I still need to understand how to construct meaning out of something. So, yeah, we are not concerned at the Department of Education that reading, writing, and mathematics is going away anytime soon. But it is interesting to look at these projections and see what's happening with businesses and what they're looking for.
Yeah, and especially, we hear a lot about soft skills. We've heard about them for a few years. I'm also reading in the chat as well. And that becomes even more important. And that's always in these lists of these projections, and in that World Economic Forum research as well, is talking about critical thinking and students with the ability to collaborate and communicate with one another. Those things become even more important as, some of these technologies take over some maybe of the basic calculations and things that they might be doing, but what do they do with that? How do they communicate those ideas? How do they work with others? How do they collaborate with others? I think those skills become even more essential as we look at what is the human's role in in business and creativity, in teaching and learning alongside AI.
Absolutely. I see some great comments in the chat as well. One says artificial intelligence functions as a language model relying on human generated data, such as literature, historical records, and artistic expression. So it was all from humans anyway, right? Um, let's see, to establish patterns for both input and output. This creates a dynamic akin to a collaborative relationship rather than a mere tool user paradigm. It's essential to recognize the distinctive strengths of humans and AI. Humans possess creativity and emotional intelligence, while AI excels in processing vast data sets and identifying trends. Absolutely. Yeah. Creativity, so important. Um, and it's great for mental health. It's great for, I don't know, Martine maybe getting into some of that. I just read a great book about the arts and the brain. It talked a lot about this. Martine's nodding. Maybe he has some of that research. Pretty excited about that. And then we have also in the chat, AI is also being promoted as someone to talk to, get advice. And so that's something we got to really consider with our students as well, right? Are they understanding that Siri is not their friend, right? I've heard young students, teachers have told me that their students say, "Oh, my friend Alexa," and it's the machine, right? So that human element is definitely key. So Heidi, any last questions for us or thoughts before we learn a lot more about how to use AI for creativity?
No, I am excited to see Martine's presentation because I think that really speaks to got the human in the loop, right? And we mentioned emotional intelligence up into the chat. And if you've spent a significant amount of time talking to some of the chat bots, ChatGPT or Gemini or whatnot, that is the piece that can be missing. It can fake emotions, but it doesn't really have any, right? And so keeping those relationships between the humans and that human creativity and the human ingenuity that we need alongside of what AI can do for us is vital. And so I'm excited to hand it off to Martine and talk about creativity.
Thank you so much, Heidi. So
Thanks.
appreciate your questions for us so we can really think critically about this. And that's such an excellent segue to a creative educator extraordinaire, a good friend of mine, Martin Cisneros, an education evangelist with Adobe. And you can just see the creativity on this slide right here. At least the part that Martine did. You can just, it's screaming creativity. I love it. So I'm going to go ahead and hand it off to you, Martine. You can share your screen and tell us a little bit about creativity. I'm excited to hear.
All right, all right. First of all, can you hear me coming through? I have like 4 screens and I'm trying something new. So,
Yes. Yes.
anyways, all good. Well, good afternoon, everyone. How you doing? My name is Martin Cisneros. I am currently an education evangelist with Adobe. But prior to that, I love to tell people that I started teaching in the late 1900s with technology. So that was 1992. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, before the interwebs. So I've come a long way, but I'm here today to talk about creativity AI in the classroom. What is working, what it's not, and what are some of the findings? So the first thing I love to ask is, I want you to think of a creative idea that you've had recently, right? Because we have them every day. That's what we do. We're educators. We have them every day. It could be something small, like maybe there's a kind of boring format of slides or a report that you've been wanting to try something new with it, right? Or maybe it's a bigger idea. Maybe it's that book, Cat. The part 2 to you and Coach Adams. Coaching through AI kind of a deal, right? Or maybe it's something really creative with the capital C. Maybe your kid is really into dragons lately, right? And you thought, what if for their birthday I painted a dragon on their bedroom wall? Whatever it is, it might take a moment to think about a creative idea that you've been kicking around for a while. There are a lot of things that can get in the way, though, right? Of a creative idea being brought to life. We're busy, things come up, but often the biggest hurdle simply is, you probably guessed it, ladies and gentlemen, the blank screen. Oh, yeah. Whether it's a Google Doc, whether it's just even learning how to prompt, right? Because we're talking about AI, but it's the blank page, that blank canvas, that blank wall. This is one of the most terrifying things in existence, actually, because let's be honest, it's a blank page. It's not just a blank page. It's also a voice in your head. The more you look at it, the more that smug blinking cursor can start saying things like, come on, Martin, you're not really going to write a book, are you? You're not an author. Painting a mural on your kid's wall? Please, you're not an artist. Leave it to the people who are actually creative. And ladies and gentlemen, and just like that, right? A really cool idea can go straight into the bin if we feel this way as adults. Imagine how children and young adults process those thoughts, which compound their insecurities, their fears, and putting themselves out there, right? So, but what if, think for a moment, if creative confidence isn't nurtured and cultivated, then pathways to opportunity can close pretty quickly. Students decide whether to pursue, abandon their ideas, which open or close career pathways, um, bigger life goals, right? So, how do we take away the fear of a blank page? I've been a teacher, like I said, the year was 1992, and I taught every grade level except first, second, seventh, 10th, and 11th. After that, became an administrator, 2 years in elementary, 2 years in secondary. After that, came to work. I was literally working with work cats working at now. I work for the state. And then I ended up working at 4 different county offices before my last public job was a director of technology at a South Silicon Valley school district before joining Adobe. But the one of the focal questions for me always is, not only as an educator but now as a researcher as well, I'm interested in which combination of instructional practices, curriculum, and technology, specifically AI, best equip and empower students to be creative thinkers, solvers, and communicators. And so, with the release, of course, of generative AI, especially in the past few years, while much of the initial focus was on AI for analytical writing, data analysis, coding, etc., I've been interested in something a little different, and of course, something more exciting for the potential. So, my question is, how can generative AI make that blank page less scary for everyone? Students and teachers, right? And how might AI take that spark of creativity we all have and start amplifying it? This isn't about replacing creativity, as we all know, because we still need that human side of things, but nurturing so students can start seeing themselves as capable of bringing their great ideas to life. So, this year, Adobe released Creativity with AI in Education 2025 report, a new study conducted by Adobe and the research organization Advantis. Because among the early insights emerging on the impact of generative AI on student learning, there hasn't been a meaningful deep dive on research focused on creativity with AI up until now. So this was our first attempt. And so for the past few months, we've been gathering insights from over 2,800 primary, secondary, and higher education educators. For this first report, we started with educators across the US and the UK, across all subjects and disciplines. We learned from their surveys, short essays, curriculum examples, and case studies of what happened on the ground in classrooms. Throughout the report, we asked the big question, number one: how is creative generative AI being used in the classrooms today? How is it influencing student outcomes? How does it influence student near career outcomes? And of course, how does it influence student personal well-being? I'm excited to share that what we learned with you. It's very, very cool. So let's get into it. If this number, so first of all, this number is pretty remarkable, right? 89% of educators reported that their students are using AI to create in their classrooms. 20% that they direct their students to do so, and 69% say that they leave it open as optional. Yeah, if this number seems too high for you, it did for me as well. But with what I learned from these educators is that creative generative AI tools that help students create images, posters, slides, infographics, animations are a simpler, starting point in introducing AI to students, because these kinds of projects don't disrupt traditional assessments like worksheets, multiple quiz choices, or essays. Creative AI isn't going to tell your students if the answer is D or all of the above, or Kat and Heidi. I don't know if you remember, but when I took the SATs, I remember it's like, if you don't know the answer, mark C, right? So it doesn't do that for you. But the goodness, what comes from more creative activities can create some real momentum, classroom engagement. We found out that 67% of students who create with AI for their coursework do so at least weekly. A whopping 21% of them do so daily. So so something's going on here for sure, right? To contextualize this, here are some examples of what we heard from educators. Now, for those of us who have been doing the sessions, we've been doing let's experiment with AI and PD across. This is not too much of a leap, right? What we're seeing here. One primary school teacher who has been adopting this kind of approach shared that they're motivated to do so because AI can help their children foster their ideas when they have trouble expressing themselves. Now, I say this because it rings to me, because growing up, I grew up here in California as a multilingual student. And sometimes it was very difficult for me to put out my ideas, whether it was in Espanol or Ingles, which was my target language, right? And secondary math teacher shared, it's important to remind myself that even though I'm teaching a science with hard and fast rules, there is room for expressing new ideas. And what I can tell you is that creativity builds confidence in all of our students. And it makes those connections between why are we studying science? Why are we studying history? Why are we studying literature? It makes sense as long as they are, undergoing these creative projects. And the uni lecturer here from London sees how AI can provide inspiration when students have creative blocks. It gives them guidance and incentives, and we're going to talk a little bit more about that in the future, right? So how in particular is this type of technology helping when it comes to actual instructional practices? Because, I was speaking to Kat earlier, and I love, listening to all the speakers before Heidi and I came on board today. And it was something that my good friend Ed Campos said. It's like, I love the idea that when we get together, we should share, hey, what did you learn about AI this week, right? Because it's always on, we're always learning something. So I love that whole communal aspect, right? But when it comes to actual instructional practices, this is what we found out. The top benefit educators reported as helpful for creative projects or multimedia is increasing the speed of creation. That's right. Because there's always that really cool project you want to do with students, but feasibly, we never have enough time. Pretty much do we, because we find ways of not to do it, right? And generative AI can make creating much faster. Second, most helpful, educators say that this technology improves student creative confidence, putting fear in the blank page to bed. So I love this, because about, once again, it's not just not only the tool, but the creativity, the skill, right? We know for a fact, for those of us who have been in education for a while, that that pendulum swings from one far end to the other every few years, and every new curriculum comes with some new stuff. But at the end of the day, we're trying to build skill sets for our students here. But besides those structural benefits, what's really motivating to so many educators to adopt this new technology for creative learning, the top listed reason is improved student engagement. What? Student engagement? Yeah, most of us haven't heard about that since this little virus that went around back in 2020, right? Which is what we all know is kind of everything right now. Second, educators report that they're motivated because they want their students to be better communicators. Once again, skill sets, ladies and gentlemen, including visual communication, and they want to give them more opportunity to express themselves, because we are living in a time that I can tell you, since I've been out of education, if I turn anything physical in the office, they might call security on me, because we publish everything, ladies and gents. And third, but still really important, are those keystone metrics, right? improve student retention, attendance, and even graduation rates. Now, this study drew from the general population, so that was a broad spectrum of educators who do or don't use AI, but even more so, those who have highly creative classrooms. And those where creative skills aren't prioritized, which made me curious, right? So, in the research on creativity in the classrooms, these are some of the top instructional practices that cultivate creative thinking across subject. Brainstorming various approaches or solutions, projects that ask students to try different methods. Heidi, we talked about this earlier, right? Is like how do we measure up? It might be just changing what are the goals for the students in the classrooms to use these tools, right? To try different methods, even if they may not succeed, generating original ideas, discussing topics without right or wrong answers, etc. Something we used to call dialogue. Do y'all remember? Can you say dialogue, kids? Right? So we asked teachers in this study, which of these practices do you use and how often? Daily, weekly, monthly, or less. That allowed us to look at the data and compare the top 25 of educators who do this the most and the bottom 25 of educators who do these the least. Often because their standards, curriculum, or school culture disincentivizes this kind of instruction. So what I wanted you to know, how do these approaches influence other learning and cognitive skills beyond creativity? Check this out. First and foremost, this is the percentage of teachers who say their students demonstrate each cognitive skill at least weekly. On the left, in the gray, are teachers in the bottom quartile of focusing on creativity. And on the right, the teachers in the top quartile. So when it comes to resilience, for instance, high creative practice educators show that 31% increase in weekly student demonstration of resilience. And these really significant gains were found for a series of essential skills for students, including deep learning of subject matter, making connections across subject, curiosity, knowledge retention, yay, right? Especially in the age of everybody having cell phones, problem solving, and then, of course, critical or analytical thinking. And that's a lot of goodness, ladies and gentlemen. And if creative AI helps teachers see a lot more of these positive outcomes, it's perhaps not surprising there's such a high level of adoption. Once again, this is what we're doing here. Most of you who are here already understand this. That's why you're here, after school, listen to whether it's on Facebook or you are reviewing this like I did earlier this week on some of the good stuff that's here on the CDE website. This is what we do. So in one case study, a science educator in England, Dr. Benjamin Scott, who shared this with us. Creative AI tools have been a breath of fresh air in my teaching. I didn't used to feel that science was that creative, but for my students and I using AI together, it has inspired new, refreshing lessons. That is key, ladies and gentlemen. The teacher and the students are using it together as a community, right? This is not just a silo. This is not just, we're going to be creative on Friday after we do our real work kind of a language, which is what I hear quite a bit, right? Students also have a new outlet to demonstrate their understanding and learn new digital and presentation skills. My favorite being in the creation of a digital lab reports videos. So, when I think about Dr. Benjamin here, right, it makes me think about the importance of creative skills. So I know both Kat and Heidi mentioned this earlier about the World Economic Forum. So when we look at the World Economic Forum, literally, there it is at the top of the list of career rising significance in the next 2 years, according to a global cross industry. So it's not just one industry; it's cross industry. And this is when the World Economic Forum launched their first ever Education 4.0 initiative 5 years ago. But I also want you to know that right next to creative thinking, it's also adaptability is the other skill set at number one. I want you to think just about in your career right now. How many times have you, and it's just Tuesday, how many times have you had to be creative or had to adapt, right? Yeah. And of course, the new kid on the block you don't see here at number 7 is AI. So it's coming up. And I will not be surprised that within the next year, it's going to be in the top 5, right? So this motivation helping students acquire durable skills to unlock broad career opportunities was a strong driver for many teachers in the study, even primary school teachers for whom the students are many years from employment. So think about elementary schools, right? But I love this, that 86% of educators believe teaching students these creative generative AI skills will enhance their chances of securing jobs, not just any job, but jobs that they're really actually passionate about. Now, if you don't know about this new generation, right, they look at us, right, for those of us who've been here for a bit, and they're like, what? You worked for how long? You worked over 40 hours a week? What? Right? And it's funny. And not only that, but of course, and you know, and 38% reported that it improves student career prospects among their top reasons for encouraging responsible use of creative AI. So there's a lot of benefits into this, right? The world is changing at a rapid pace. We know this, and students need to be equipped with all the skills required for a future where AI will play a role in almost every aspect of their life. Um, I don't need to tell you guys this. You guys understand this, right? But this is what teachers are, you know, and these aren't teachers who are like most of us here who will continue probably to research, probably look at another video too from the previous stuff. No, these are your normal everyday teachers who are in the grind and finding out that, you know, um, I love that second paragraph. It fosters creativity by enabling learners to experiment with innovative ideas, and that's what makes us human. So you know, even though we talk about this, oh, AI is going to take care of a lot. It's going to take care of a lot, but it's also going to add a lot of new opportunities for each and every one of us. Right. Here's another, of course, a quote from a teacher, and it's about, of course, purpose. A teacher's sense of purpose and the sense of purpose they want to instill in their students came up often in the research. Pulling on that thread, we learned some pretty remarkable things about purpose, right? So here's the first one. Research on the power of purpose shows that the most people in the world, up to almost 70% in the US, define their sense of purpose through work and business. I want you to think about that, right? Y'all remember your first year of teaching, right? And then think about your fifth year of teaching, your 10th year, your 15th, 20, 25, 30. Raise your hands high and proud, folks, right? Yeah. It if you don't have it gets really tough after 15 if your purpose is not really in this work. So the research does not lie, right? But this was also surprising. Did you know that people who have higher sense of purpose, and by the way, there's actually a series of questions that can qualify or quantify, I should say, a person's sense of purpose. But in the research, those with a strong sense of purpose also have better immune systems, lower stress, better cognitive function, decreased risk of heart disease, and I believe even live longer. Come on, folks. If that's not it, no need to go to hot yoga at 5 o'clock in the morning, right? You just need a little bit of course, also creativity, right? It's one of the main areas where people find their sense of purpose, trying new things, brainstorming new approaches, bringing something to life that didn't exist before. That's where AI and creativity really shine, right? So, because there's empirical measure of someone's sense of purpose, we use this to evaluate tools in the study. Just like cohorts of educators based on creativity in their classes, in the data, we created two cohorts: the top 25% of educators with the highest sense of purpose and the lowest 25%. We wanted to know what the fire in the belly, if you want to say that way, influences their commitment for student learning that motivates them and having the opportunity to learn new skills and develop their own sense of purpose. Just think of mindset, right? Educators with a low sense of purpose say the responsibility is pretty split for students figuring out what they want to do with their lives. The gray leaf is 33% of educators who say it's more the student's responsibility to explore a sense of purpose. 39% feel a shared sense of responsibility, and only 28% who put the stake in the ground and say it's their job to ensure to cultivate a sense of purpose. So once again, educators with a low sense of purpose. Now let's look at the other side, right? On the other side, yeah, buddy, we have the educators with a higher sense of purpose. Only 14% pass the buck on their students. A full 88% of high purpose educators take ownership in ensuring their students have a strong sense of purpose in their lives. They are the ones where students aren't just learning long division and that mitochondria are the powerhouse of the cell, but they are creating, exploring, and expressing themselves and figuring out their place in the world. And that's what creativity does to students in the classroom, right? So, because this is a lot at stake, ladies and gentlemen, the next generation needs to find purpose more than ever. In primary school, 80% of students don't have a clear idea of their purpose, which is a shame because research has shown that those who do tend to have better mental health and more resilient against setbacks. By secondary schools, of course, things don't work out as much. 58% of young adults say that their lack of meaning or purpose in their lives, and half report that their mental health is negatively influenced by that. I believe there's also research with social media. I can't remember if I saw this on Common Sense Media, but I will find it and send it over to Cap. But it has to do with social media. It's comparing your life to everybody else. And we all know that most people only put the highlights on social media, right? And I always go back, what is better screen time? Well, creating versus consuming is always better, ladies and gentlemen, right? And for those who say, well, that's what was unique for us to figure out what do you want to do with your life, 95% of college graduates consider a sense of purpose more important in their work, but only 40% of recent graduates say they've actually found that meaningful career. Because if you don't know your sense of purpose, you can't make a purpose-driven decisions and explore and thrive in careers that nourish that sense of purpose. This gets tricky. This is why people, are all I always say, keep that resume sharp at all times if you are not happy where you're at. So we have towards the end right here, we have an educator, Miss Eve Heaton from South Carolina, who shared this with us. Because of self-expression can take many forms, AI offers my students the flexibility to choose how they want to convey their thoughts and feelings. Once again, ladies and gentlemen, I think about the whole student, not just the average student. I think about the special ed student. I think about the multilingual student. I think about, the kids who are reserved, right? And as she says here, for those who struggle to be heard or seen, the ability to transform their ideas or words and images with AI is invaluable. Once again, self-expression. Self-expression is so important. This shows how a holistic success really is. The academic, of course, achievement, the career success, the personal well-being, and the sense of purpose are all intertwined. And creativity connects these realms and really raises all boats, if you think about it, which is why I find it so exciting to see ways in which AI designed safely, as I've seen CDE point this out, right? Responsibility, and of course, made for the classroom can help us with this development. But this technology is new, and adoption and meaningful curriculum integration take time. We know this. And here are the real barriers for today. Look at this, folks. Yes. When we asked educators the top barriers to broader adoption of creativity with AI in the classroom, a big one was skepticism. I want you to think about your folks that you're working with. Are they part of this? Which makes sense for technology so new and moving so fast, right? Teacher skepticism was the top barrier at 57%. 45% say they need safe, trusted classroom appropriate tools, and another 45 said budget constraints is a barrier, as too many tools cost too much and they're priced more for commercial use than education. We all found this out during COVID time as well, right? We all went through this. 45 and 9% said parent and administrator skepticism, but many did share positive impact of even a single PD for admins or an information session for parents. So these things helps, ladies and gentlemen, these help. 38% said the IT approval process for AI tools is too cumbersome or even non-existent. And relatedly, 36% said that their schools or campuses don't have a clear AI policies. So both educators and students are apprehensive to use AI, especially for graded work. And then, of course, 31% say that they need more training and curricular materials to feel really confident and to do deeper curriculum integration. Once again, I applaud Kat and everybody at CDE to put these things on because we need more of these everywhere. So, this technology is new. We understand it. It's hard to believe it's just been a little over 3 years since generative AI tools started becoming publicly accessible. But after spending many months with this research and spending time with educators and experts in creativity and purpose, this is the kind of AI in the classroom I hope we all start paying a lot more attention to. Now, I am here because I work for Adobe. My specific team is Adobe for Education. Now, some of you are like, Martin, well, isn't this just like another tool like everyone else? So this is where this is where I say this is a little different. I always used to tell people I would never leave education, right? And I have a 1996 model, by the way. It's a kid. I don't call my kids by their name. I call them by the year they were born. So my 1996 model has always been with me. And, I used to bring him to, of course, conferences and say, look, it's so easy. A kindergarten do it. It's so easy. A fifth grader can do it. So, and of course, he graduated college and they still use him because he's just such a good example. But the reason that I'm here is because Adobe found out is like, hey, we're not Apple, we're not Google, we're not any of these other companies, but what are we? We're the number one creative company in the world. 85% of the world uses us. So how can we help? And that's where they decided, what if we build skill sets? What skill sets specifically? Creativity, communication, and now AI. So the tool, I'm not going to go too much into it, but this is a tool that the more your students use, the more skills they get out of it. So does it have the wow factor? Yes. But the thing that, after listening to the videos on this website and all the wonderful presenters, I always go back to the main thing. When are students practicing this? Right? Because I always go back to my multilingual teacher brain. And when people would say, well, our students are not learning English fast enough. And I always would say, how much time do they have to practice in the classroom? How much time do they have to practice at home? And are we monitoring that? And if the answer is no, it's because, once again, we're focusing on other things and not the skill set. So at Adobe for Education, we literally focus on the skill set. So that's why we bring you all these wonderful things. But because every student everywhere deserves the opportunity to fulfill their creative potential, here's the QR code for the research so you can dive in and learn more. Take a picture of that, because the last thing I'm going to show you is just what we do. I want to show you what students do when it comes to this. So I'm just going to escape here really quick. I'm going to jump out over this. Oh, by the way, Adobe for Education K-12 is one of the very few products that is free with all the bells and whistles. If you are a mere mortal, meaning you're outside of education, you pay for this. But if you're K-12 globally, you get this for free. But I'm just going to show you just something that's fun, right? This is how we start. We start off with drawing. I know I said drawing. Yes, I know. We build the best movies. We create the best music. The NFL, Amazon, everyone uses us. But for the first time ever, ladies and gentlemen, kids can come in here and say, mi alebrije es un tigre who wears shades y le gusta usar un skateboard. That's right, ladies and gentlemen. You heard my Spanglish. And now students can talk about their alebrijes, which is their spirit animal. Think Coco, the movie, right? Think about the dog. And no matter what the language is, no matter whether a student can speak or, can write or not, they can at least speak. They can now come in and turn their ideas, their alebrije, into a reality, right? So the kids can now create their own coloring books, but it just doesn't stop there. That this is not what we're about. I'm going to download this because I'm going to use that for something later on. But I just want you to understand that our students can come in here. And we have these things called guided activities. So even if the teacher doesn't know how to use it, guess what? We have a video that takes the students and the teacher step by step of how to do this. And when they click in here to create their generative AI, look what happens. I'm going to zoom in a little bit so you can see this better. Yep, we have set and starters. Oh, what did I just do? So that way you can come in here, you can turn, make it really, really easy. I'm going to type in unicorn. And when people said, and I think Kat or I don't know which one of you said it earlier, this is like language arts. When people ask me, Martin, why are you teaching our kids text to image? I'm like, oh, that's easy. It's called language arts. Do you guys teach language arts? And of course, everybody says yes. And I'm like, great, what are they? That's when you hear tumbleweeds flying by. And here's what it is. We all know, we should know. Listening, speaking, reading, writing, right? Yeah, there's two more. But people always forget. Number 5, we are reading text. We're reading multimedia text, which means we're consuming at number 5, which means what are we doing at number 6? That's why we are creating multimedia. So our students can now, oh my goodness, look how cute that is, can come in here, go into their media, and for the first time ever, right? They can come in here, they can choose a different character, but guess what I choose? I choose a mouth. That's right, ladies and gentlemen. Why would I want to choose a mouth as a character? Because once again, we are trying to show our kids how to level up in their communication. And communication today comes in so many different flavors. So I go in here and do the following. Well, hello, everyone. How you doing? My name is Martin Ciceros, and today I'm going to tell you a little bit about my furry friend, Carlos. Yeah, my monster's named Carlos. What of it? So, kids can now turn themselves into animation. They can now tell stories. Now, of course, I don't have time for processing, but I just want you to see what is possible as I wrap this up and take any questions. But just to see what is possible, here is something that teachers, and I did this for a teacher who I was going to present at their classroom, and they're like, "Oh yeah, our students have no idea what Lunar New Year is." So I'm like, "Okay."
Happy Lunar New Year, everyone! Wait, what? What is Lunar New Year? Let me tell you.
Imagine the Lunar New Year as a giant birthday party, but not just for one person. It's a celebration for everyone, and it happens when the moon decides it's time for an
Ahead and upload.
and that's it. You can make many cards and animations for your friends and family.
So, like I said, not only can we go into cartoons, but we are now in the phase where we can learn any language.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Martin Cisneros, and I am an education evangelist with Adobe. Estoy aquí para compartir las buenas noticias sobre Adobe Express. Zum ersten Mal verwenden, werden Sie von den Möglichkeiten begeistert sein, was Ihre Schülerinnen und Schüler mit kreativen
And with the Shula, I am ending right here because I know we're out of time. But I just wanted you to see the possibilities of what is possible with game, right? So when it comes to creativity is something that all of our students can do, can practice every day, especially with the safe use of AI. I've heard this and I've seen this on the CDE. Adobe meets all the COPAs, FERPAs, and SOPAs that are out there. And we are make sure that we have guardrails with our AI as well. So let's say, for example, if a kid wants to say, oh, can we have a flying fish, over a fisherman? Yes. Can we have a killer whale? And of course, Adobe's going to say, sorry, we cannot produce that for you. But if you what is a killer whale? Oh, can we have an orca flying over? Yes, we can have that, right? So these are the guardrails that we have, and I will stop here to take any questions or move it back to Kat.
Thank you so much, Martine. And I love the focus on creativity, and also love hearing that. I love that thank you for sharing about Adobe Express, because when we first started these webinars, back in, gosh, it's already been, now we're already in 2025, back in like 2023, so to speak, there were not, we didn't have student safe applications of generative AI yet, right? And then Adobe started adding more into them. There's other, you may have other products that are starting to embed AI for students as well, because we want to make sure our students are safe. So Adobe is one of those that is FERPA COPA compliant, and so we appreciate that. I remember when I first started having these conversations, teachers would ask me, well, what can I use? What app can I use with my students? And I would say none in the classroom, but they'll use them at home, right? Now we do have apps that we can use in the classroom. So that's fantastic. Such great information from both Heidi and Martine, things to think about, ways to increase creativity. There's lots of thank yous in the chat. If anybody does have any questions, please feel free to drop that in the chat. And as you are writing any of that, if you are interested in writing some questions or some thank yous, wanted to let you know our next steps to support you. So all registrants are going to be sent an email with links to the CDE AI resources, a link to this presentation, and opportunity to provide input for Senate Bill 1288. Senate Bill 1288 calls for CDE to have a statewide AI work group. We are currently reviewing the nearly 600 applications that came in, but we want input from all of you. So there will be a link to a survey so we can find out what's actually happening in California. We heard some great things from Martine from our Adobe of what's happening in across the globe. We want to know what's happening specifically with generative AI in California. There will be a recording link sent to you via email as well with that. Want to let you know that in May, we are going to focus on supporting multilingual learners. So please join us. Remember, be sure to sign up, because even if you're not able to attend, you will receive the resources and the recording afterwards. So I know that happens a lot. A lot of people will sign up, not able to attend live, but can watch the recording later. So please join us for our May sessions. And I want to thank you for all that you do. You are all amazing. Thank you for being here after hours during the week. And a special thank you to our speakers for sharing their insights and expertise and volunteering their time to help our California educators and students.